put it into historical perspective a little bit in terms of what was going on in Piemonte at the time, because the time from the First World War up through the Second World War was absolutely brutal in Piemonte, and there was a very strong possibility that Barolo and Barbaresco were not going to continue on. You know, the young people were leaving. It was a very hard, arduous life. There was a lot of hunger. There was a lot of poverty in the region. There was just this tenacious desire to continue on as their forefathers had, making these great wines that were not that well understood at that period of time. Mussolini hated wine, so there was no sympathy there during the Mussolini era in Italy. The First World War had been brutal in that area, and then the Second World War, you had not only the young men going off to fight in the Italian army and then being interned in the POW camps, you also had a lot of fighting going on in the area. So it was just a brutal time. Right after the war, just complete poverty. You know, it was really an economic disaster for Italy post-World War II. So you have this stretch where really people were not certain they were going to continue on making Barolo and Barbaresco. And it really, you had a few good vintages in the late 40s, but really there was not the capability to capture the real potential of the vintages. There was a shortage of bottles, there was a shortage of manpower, there was, you know, a shortage of things you needed in the vineyard. So they made good wines, great vintage in 47, but they didn't really have the opportunity to capture all the potential that was inherent in the vintage. You get to 1958, you finally get a vintage that's a great vintage, and the region is starting to recover a little economically. And then you have, subsequent to that, you have 61, 64, 67, 70, and 71. So you have this stretch of vintages that arguably saved Barolo as we know it today. Because all of a sudden people realize, wow, we could actually make a living here. We don't have to starve to death like our grandparents did to make Barolo. You know, just tenaciously hang on to the land. And so the possibility of working in the factories in Milan became less attractive to the young people. And you really have, I think the renaissance that we see in Barolo and Barbaresco today owes, you know, its origins to these great vintages that started in 58. So I think it'll be just fascinating to take a look through these Barolos here in 61, 64, and 67 and compare them. And if we like them, we could, you know, say the young people that stayed were correct in those days, that this was a good thing to do. So I think maybe we'll just plunge in from here. We'll talk a little bit about each vintages after each flight.